An overview at the very top?
Okay, an overview.
Yeah. Is everyone ready? The burial of an ideology does not make it disappear because we are willing to do so. If anything, the effects, and particularly the negative ones, get morphed into the invisible ones, the ghosts that haunt us and attack us from the realm of which we have been taught not to see. Ideology cannot be eradicated from the minds of anyone, only newer ones come along to layer on top of the former. Specific to what the app is looking to do is only allowing for invisible dangers to arrive as these ghosts of that we are talking about wreak havoc. We need to be able to recognize and understand these ghosts before we can do anything else, especially when people like the app want to check off a list and move on to the next thing. That's how our alt is explained. Okay. So going down the line of the K-flow, the affirmative is seriously mishandling this argument. They think that we're like disguising the power structures when our alt is actually just to confront the ghosts that we have buried thus far and like try to understand them. If anything, this method is going to get us to like really understand the kind of oppression that we are faced with currently, so that we don't improperly bury them in the future and continue this horrific and dangerous cycle that has gone on for like our entirety. On the perm debate, we are critiquing the way that we want to present politics. The perm doesn't make any sense because it only introduces the same cycle that I mentioned, in which we will perpetuate improper burial, in which in turn rises new ghosts that we have to first find again and recognize and further reconfront. Meanwhile, in between that time, while they think that the problem is solved, violence is still being done in our bodies by these ghosts. Things like norms are still being, things like norms are still enacting violence against our bodies, probably still just in round, but especially, probably still out of round, but especially in round. Let's see. Yeah, so they start to think that, like, they make this argument about whether or not the app is going to be a good starting point, but this kind of like comes from the perm debate, right? That they're going to just like continue this like improper burial cycle that's only going to like re-entrench us, and it's only going to continue any kind of like violence done on our bodies because like we don't acknowledge these ghosts currently. Onto the link debate, you can group all of their like link arguments. The entire burial and their non-confrontation with the norms and like why they exist, besides like a 9-minute eulogy, like that is the link here. They are improperly burying like these norms that have done violence on us and are still going to do violence on us, not only in round but especially out of round, which both sets of instances should be should be analyzed if we're looking at like this kind of re-entrenchment, not only in a single debate round but in multiple debate rounds. Going to their fiat bad argument, first of all, you don't necessarily fiat an alternative. That's not really like how criticism works. But either way, like if you wanted to frame it that way, like we're still not fiating in the way that they present. It's going to be like a process, right? And this is the only like method in which like that we can begin to solve. This is this is our Baudrillard 93 evidence. It talks about how when you vote negative and when you like vote for this critique, that is what's going to allow us to finally like begin to start to, it's going to let us begin to recognize these ghosts, and it's going to allow us to start this confrontation with our ghosts. It's obviously not like, okay, awesome, they've been confronted and found, awesome, like we're done. That's obviously not how this is going to work. On their response to the banishment, also wasn't really handled well. Our point is that there's always going to be a but first before we get to these ghosts, right? There's always going to be like a new form of oppression that they are going to want to bear. There's always going to be like a new problem that we want to tackle in the here and now before we address the invisible ghosts that are still doing violence upon us. And that is why we have to address the ghosts first, because otherwise we're just going to enter into like the cyclical improper burial that I keep having to mention. And then the ethics question at the very end, that's our Derrida 6 evidence. Like, again, our ethics get put on the specter and on the ghost, right? We have to, this is part of like the understanding of the ghost. We have to understand why these types of violence are done on, are put on our bodies, and we have to actually get some like contextual analysis on like what it is that goes around, what it is that goes on around us that's actually going to sorry, like I've been saying, it's just like these are the kinds of ways that we have to be able to like to confront these ghosts. Did I cover it?
Answer like just explain why K comes where you did that. Explain the impact, like how it's making it more insidious is even worse.
Yeah, so just to briefly explain the impact, making this kind of, like recreating these ghosts and allowing for this kind of like evil and violence just to become more insidious and like invisible to us is going to be even worse because again, like we don't understand that these things happen to us because they are ghosts. So like this is why we have to embrace the alt because like otherwise like we are never going to be able to like even begin to confront these kinds of impacts and we are always going to have like violence done upon our bodies from different ideologies that have been improperly buried since for the entirety. And it's about time. Oh, yeah. Okay, we'll start, Fred.
Okay, you have 5:39 remaining.